Well, the final UFC pay-per-view of the decade is officially in the books. UFC 245 has come and gone, and that means it's time to look at what's next for the big winners tonight. I'm Ariel Helwani. That's Brett Okamoto here in Las Vegas. They're tearing down the cage right behind us. And, you know, it's funny in our business, we don't even have a second to actually digest what happens in the cage. We have to look at what's next.
It's what we do.
Yes.
It's what we do in this
right
sport.
away. You have to look at what's next. And you know what's interesting? Sometimes at the end of these shows, especially when there's title fights, you kind of know who's next. You know who the number one contender is. I would make a strong case that for the three champions tonight, Amanda Nunes, who retained, Alexander Volkanovski, who beat Max Holloway, and, of course, Kamaru Usman, who retained his belt, the future is somewhat murky. Let's talk about Kamaru Usman first. He beats Colby Covington. He shuts him up, at least for now. Beats him in the 5th round. TKO, dramatic victory. But I'm not quite sure I know who is next. Who do you think is next for Kamaru Usman?
It has to be Jorge Masvidal.
Here's the question. Is Masvidal interested in that fight?
You know, I don't think Masvidal is interested in that fight because he's interested in some other fights that I just don't think are going to happen. I don't. I mean, this is just me personally speculating. I mean, here we are, December 14th. Some things have to happen, right? Yeah. I mean, Conor McGregor fights Cowboy in about a month from now, and that plays into Jorge Masvidal's plans. You know, we don't know the status exactly of Nick Diaz. I know that he's mentioned him. But, of course, you know, he's doing what I would do, what you would do, what any of us would do. He's coming off of the hottest year of his career, one of the hottest years in recent memory in this sport, and he's looking for the biggest fights. But I just don't think Conor McGregor is going to materialize for him. And I kind of don't want Conor McGregor to materialize for him. I think there are other fights out there that make more sense for Conor. Nick Diaz, you know, from what I hear, I still haven't heard him reaching out and really showing a very serious, you know, motivation to come back to the sport. I think Jorge is going to be in need of a dance partner. And look, Kamaru Usman, I get it. I get why Jorge Masvidal would say, I don't care if he's a champion, he's still not a big enough fight for me. But after tonight, I mean, I know that this wasn't the biggest pay-per-view ever of all time, but I think enough eyeballs are on this. I think the rivalry between he and Colby Covington and the way that he finished this fight in the 5th round, I think it gains him some notoriety. I think it gains him some popularity. And look, if Jorge Masvidal goes in and beats Kamaru Usman and he holds the title, then he holds all the keys. Then he can call a shot. Then he has he's got the BMF title, he's got the welterweight title. I think that is the way to go for Jorge Masvidal.
Yeah, he'd be a sort of unofficial double champion, if you will, because of those two belts. I don't disagree with the notion that he's the number one contender at 170, that in a perfect world he does fight for the belt because he has earned that shot. I just wonder if he wants that fight. So I think we'll only really know the answer to this particular question on, say, January 19th, because I think he's going to try to campaign for the Conor fight. Yep. You didn't mention Nate Diaz, though.
Yeah.
You don't think that's in the cards for him, for Jorge Masvidal?
I think Nate Diaz is always in the cards for just about anybody that Nate Diaz wants to be in the cards for. But, you know, I think that rematch could happen at some point. I think that there are layers to how big it could be, you know, and if Jorge Masvidal goes out and wins a welterweight championship, how much bigger is a rematch then, you know? So I think Nate Diaz is in play, but I don't think he's in play in the immediate future. You know, I think Nate Diaz is also another guy that's going to sit back a little bit. We are going to know so much more on January 19th, because all this goes out the window if Conor McGregor goes out and beats Cowboy Cerrone and says, I want Jorge Masvidal. If he says that, then we're all getting on board that train.
But clearly, if you're Kamaru Usman and his team, you want Masvidal next, right? That's the biggest fight that you can have?
I believe so, yeah. And really, when you look around the welterweight division, if it's not Jorge Masvidal, who is it?
Yeah.
Who is the welterweight challenger if it's
not?
Leon
Edwards, but he has a win over Leon Edwards way back when, and it seems like maybe Edwards, Woodley are going to tangle.
Yep.
You think that they could do a Woodley rematch? Not yet, right? Woodley probably has to win a fight.
Not yet.
Correct? So it seems like Masvidal is the biggest fight. Also, he's the hottest fighter, arguably, in the UFC.
I really think it's going to be Jorge Masvidal again, unless on January 19th, Conor McGregor throws us a curveball, which, of course, you know, he's been known to do.
Okay, let's talk about the featherweight division now. We have a new champion. His name is Alexander Volkanovski. He has won 18 in a row. A very good game plan, a very strong showing out of him. It was not controversial. It was one-sided. He wins via decision, but I don't think anyone scored that fight for Max Holloway. Afterwards, UFC President Dana White said he's considering doing the immediate rematch, perhaps in Australia later next year. Do you like that idea?
Yeah, and he seemed pretty adamant about it. Now, look, it's fight night, you know, and sometimes Dana White will hold his cards close to his vest. Other times he'll say things that don't even end up coming to fruition. And on this one, I was there when he said it, and he seemed pretty genuine about it. And you know what? I think he should be. Max Holloway has won 14 fights in a row at featherweight coming into this matchup. It was a convincing win, I thought, for Alex Volkanovski. I didn't have a problem with the scorecards. I thought I would have a problem if anybody really scored the fight for Max Holloway. I think it was pretty clear cut. But I also thought that in the fourth and fifth rounds, Max Holloway was maybe figuring him out a little bit. Not to the point where I'm saying, hey, Max Holloway is the favorite. He's going to come back. He's going to have a completely different game plan. But I think when you look at Max Holloway and you consider him to be one of the best of all time, which I do, even at this point, coming off of 2 losses in his last 3 fights, I think Max Holloway is a generational talent. I think you give him the opportunity to go back to his gym and to make some adjustments and to come back and try and beat this guy. Because I know he lost to Dustin Poirier, but that was at 155 pounds. This is his first loss at 145 since he lost to Conor McGregor in 2013. This was a convincing win for Volkanovski, but it was not a blowout. I would like to see Max. This is a situation that warrants an immediate rematch, don't you think?
Yeah, and I think what helps Max is there's no clear-cut #1 contender not named Max Holloway, right? I mean, I know Zabita's out there and he's looked good, but is there a lot of buzz, momentum behind him? I'd love to see the fight. I just don't know if it sells as much as a Holloway-Volkanovski rematch in Australia, right? And a lot can happen, right? A lot can happen in the next 5 months or so when they start preparing for the return to Australia. I just don't see anyone out there that sticks out other than Max.
And there will be. It's such an interesting division at featherweight because there's a lot of talent there. There's a tremendous amount of talent there. You got Brian Ortega making a comeback eventually. Zabit Magomedsharipov, Yair Rodriguez, Josh Emmett has looked tremendous. I'm sure I'm forgetting others. There's a lot of talent at 145, but it needs to marinate a little bit more. I think we're going to have a lot of great contenders at 145 pounds, but there's not that one guy that needs his shot right now. Right now, the guy who needs his shot is Max Holloway, the one in 114 featherweight fights in a row.
Lest we forget, next week, Korean Zombie fights Frankie Edgar.
Zombie as well. Yep.
He could be in the mix as well. Now let's talk about Amanda Nunes. She retains her bantamweight title. Of course, she's also the featherweight champion. This one really stumps me. I mean, I know Irene Aldana looked great tonight. By far the best performance of her career, period, let alone UFC career. She beats Caitlin Vieira. But has she done enough? That's 2 in a row for her. It's a great win, but is there anyone out there for her? Even at 145, is there anyone out there for her?
I think it's Aldana. It's if you look back at her record, she's only won 2 in a row. But she's won 5 of her last 7. The only 2 losses in there were split decision losses to Caitlin Chukagian. And I've got it written down here. What is the one I'm missing? It was another woman who and Raquel Pennington.
Right.
2 women who have fought for titles. So
Caitlin about to fight for the belt.
Yeah. So if you're going to lose, 2 fights in a 7-fight span, it might as well be split decisions to females that went on to fight for championships. But I mean, I'm selling this here. It's not like something that this is going to be a very this is not going to be a big title fight for Amanda Nunes. But to your point, who else is there? And I asked Dana White that very question. It kind of has to be Aldana, right? And he said, yeah. I mean, when you lay out the stats like that, then that's what it sounds like. I did ask him, is there any chance whatsoever that it could be 145? And he said, sure. But he didn't have a name for me. He just said, people pop up out of the woodwork. I don't know what that means. But, I mean, Amanda Nunes is running out.
Yeah, the only name that comes to mind is Megan Anderson, but she's won 1 in a row.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if they just went ahead and did it. Honestly, I wouldn't.
I feel like that's a disservice to Megan, right? I feel like she needs a little more time to develop her skills. She's still quite raw.
It wouldn't be the first time. I understand your point, and I don't disagree with it. But also, I don't think you can continually say of Megan Anderson, well, we got to give her more time. We got to give her more time. We got to give her more time. I mean, I was saying that when she came in and they were going to put her against Chris Cyborg. Now she's had how many fights has she had in the UFC now? 4 or 5? I mean, she has had experience, and certainly she could have more, but it's not like she's coming in, from Invicta and this is her first time around. But that's not necessarily the fight I want to see. I guess if I was the one making the fights, it would be Aldana. You have to reward big performances. And tonight, even though it's not a big pay-per-view, if she goes off and fights Amanda Nunes, you want to reward her for a performance like that. It was a spectacular performance.
All right, let's talk about one more division here, the male 135-pound division, because we had Jose Aldo lose a very controversial decision to Marlon Moraes. We also had Petr beat Urijah Faber. Afterwards, UFC President Dana White said that he was interested in Aldo versus Henry Cejudo. Henry Cejudo hitting him up.
Yeah.
How do you give Aldo a title shot off a loss? I know it was controversial, but you got Jan, who just looked amazing against Faber.
Yeah.
You got Aljamain Sterling coming back. How do
Yeah.
you justify that?
I don't think you can justify it. And I don't think that's what's going to happen. I mean, he was relaying a story that Henry Cejudo allegedly called him and said, "Hey, Jose Aldo definitely won that fight. I want to fight him next." You know, and Dana White did say that he felt that Jose Aldo beat Marlon Moraes, but that's still not enough to make this title fight. I think it should be Petr Yan. If anybody else other than Yan, maybe Aljamain Sterling. I mean, I think Sterling has really done enough to get a title shot, but right now Yan seems to be like the hotter hand. I'm going to throw you something completely crazy here. How much I would love to see, you know what I would love to see Jose Aldo do? I think it would just be such a boss move. I think it would get the sport behind him. I think it would get the fan base behind him. What if he called out Justin Gaethje? Because right now Justin Gaethje is the odd man out, right?
Go from 135 to 155.
Justin Gaethje is the odd man out. Khabib Nurmagomedov is fighting Tony Ferguson. Conor McGregor is fighting Cowboy. Dana White has come out and said that if Conor McGregor wins and if Khabib wins, that they're looking at that rematch, and we all know why. It's because of money, right? And the guy left out is Justin Gaethje. And anybody who's a hardcore fan of this sport knows that Justin Gaethje is getting the short end of the stick. What if Jose Aldo went up, fought Justin Gaethje, and became really the true #1 contender and put himself in that conversation of getting a lightweight title fight before maybe even Conor McGregor, or at least because, you know, Conor McGregor even acknowledging him, even acknowledging his weight cut down to 135, I still feel like there's a part of Conor McGregor that wants to run it back with Jose Aldo like he said he was going to do all those years ago. Man. I just like the idea of Aldo putting himself in a conversation that involves the name Conor McGregor.
It's like 4 a.m. Eastern time. I don't know if I just imagined what you just said. This is the craziest thing I've ever heard.
Crazy,
going
right?
From 135 to 155?
Absolutely insane. Yeah, and it is late, and maybe I'm just talking completely out of my mind right now. But just since he lost to Conor McGregor, I've always wanted to see Jose Aldo just become a man obsessed and want to go after Conor McGregor. And I think, why not? He just lost a fight at 135. Some of us can say he won it, but he didn't. He lost. He looked fine at 135, but I don't necessarily need to see him continue to cut down. I never was really a big fan of it anyway, just because it happened to go pretty well. I don't need to see this long term. Go up and fight Justin Gaethje.
All right.
Get the people behind you and get Conor McGregor talking.
Okay, let's hear what the people have to say. Let us know in the comments section below. Do you like that idea? By the way, one more before we go. Jeff Neal. How about Jeff Neal with the big win over Mike Perry? He may be the first title contender to emerge from that great team, Fortis MMA. All right, we're out of time. Thank you very much for watching our coverage all week long from here in Las Vegas. Thanks for watching our coverage all decade long. How about that? We're done. We're out of here. Appreciate your time. We'll see you on Monday.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports and analysis, download the ESPN app. And for live streaming and special content, subscribe to ESPN+.